Good morning, honorable members. We are about to start the meeting. I just want to get a sense from you, Albertina, if whether do we have a quorum or not, so that we can proceed.
Okay, morning, Chair, morning members and the colleagues. Chair, yes, we do form, the committee do form a quorum. We've got Chair on the platform, MP Mtetwa, MP Aris, MP van der Walt, MP Mwetama, and MP Sikwate. So we can proceed with the meeting, Chair. Thanks. And just also see MP Trolp is also joining. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thank you so much. You are welcomed, honorable members, to this portfolio committee, and today we are receiving a briefing from the department on the 2025-2026 quarter 3 and 4 performance and expenditure report, as well as progress on the implementation of Audit Improvement Plan. We only have one item that we are going to consider today. I'm hoping that constructively, so we're going to be critique in terms of looking at the performance of the department, and also advise where we feel they need to improve. I'm now going to, I'm not sure whether the minister is on the platform. I'm going to hand over to the minister or the deputy minister to introduce the report and hand over to the DG and relevant officials. Over to you, Minister or DM.
Sorry, Chair.
Oh, I'm sorry, we've forgotten apologies. Yes, you can take us through apologies.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Chair, we received apology from MP Tabekulu, MP Smith, MP Mkongi, as well as Minister Okramp is attending. Sorry, Chair. And Minister Okramp is attending to the SADS meeting, and Deputy Minister due to ministerial commitments, Chair. Those are the apologies that we received. Thanks, Chair, and sorry for this.
Okay, no problem. Honorable members, do we take these apologies? Can I get a sense from honorable members? I see Honorable Trolip.
There's nothing we can do to accept or not to accept, but we accept. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to hand over to the DG.
Chair, you recognized my hand and the other members started speaking. What is the story?
Yes, Honorable Trolip.
Yes, thank you. Chairperson, I want to record my dissatisfaction that neither the minister or the deputy minister are not present. It wasn't more than a meeting or two ago that we took a decision that at least one of them should be present. And now at the very next meeting, both of them are making apologies. I really don't think that that's good form. The deputy minister is hardly ever present at our committees, and an apology saying she can't attend because of ministerial duties is not good enough as far as I'm concerned. So I want to register my concern that we are very often, in fact, almost more often than not, without our executive representatives in these meetings. Thank you.
Any other take, honorable member? Oh, there is no take, I can see. I believe, Honorable Trolip, that is your legacy hand. Honorable members, we take note of what Honorable Trolip has raised. I'll then request that we, in writing, send a note to Albertina to the minister's office to raise our concern as the portfolio committee that they don't show up in our portfolio committees. It's like now we are playing an oversight over the DG, the technical team. We want either one of them to be in attendance in all our portfolio committees. Just write that down. I'm going to sign it off today so that they can see that we are taking our oversight serious. So we want them to be in attendance in all our meetings. At least the apology from the minister makes sense because there's SADC head of states meeting that is taking place in KwaZulu-Natal. However, this one of the deputy minister, the apology doesn't make sense. Just prepare that note. We are going to send it to them so that they take our oversight very serious. Let's hand over to the DG
Sorry,
and the
Chair.
team.
Sorry, Chair, the apology from the DM says due to the ministerial obligation in sorrow that is happening today. That is the explanation from the apology that was sent to us. Thanks, Chair.
Even if it says that, just write a correspondence to them to say we are noting there are non-attendance to the portfolio committee. Because if the minister is not in attendance, he must delegate the deputy. I'm
Noted,
handing over
thanks,
to
Chair.
the DG now to take us through the presentation. Is the DG on the platform?
No, Chair, I don't see the DG on the platform.
So who is leading
I
this
didn't
technical
receive
team
anything.
today? All of them, they are not in attendance.
Yes,
Okay.
can,
Good morning, Chairperson. My name is Alicia Stevens. I'm from the Office of the Director General, Department of Agriculture. Ma'am, we've just had a power failure now in Pretoria, so we're just trying to sort that out, ma'am.
So how long should you wait?
Ma'am, I'll get back to ma'am in like 5 minutes time, ma'am.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
Honourable members, let's just allow them to sort themselves out, and we're going to proceed in 5 minutes.
Thanks, Chair.
Good morning, Honorable Chairman, Honorable members of the Portfolio Committee on Agriculture. My humble apologies. We just have got connection problems at Harvest House, our building here in the department. But I have joined through another colleague's device, and we can proceed with your permission, Chair. And apologies once.
Okay, no problem. You can just take us through the presentation, DG.
Thank you very much, Chair, and honorable members. We will take you through Q3 and Q4 reports. All of these reports already dated in terms of time because of the time it took for the engagements, but we are very sure that it will give insights into how the department has functioned to date. If we can just go through the first few slides, which are actually introductory slides around the department, we can skip up to slide 7. The other slides that are there are slides that reflect honorable members in terms of the department, its vision, mission, and other areas that the honorable members are aware of. Hence, I would want just to concentrate on the slides that are here. The slides that we see reflect on the performance of the department during this particular period. Now, during this particular period, there was only one area where we had serious challenges as the Department of Agriculture, if you have got to look at Q3 and Q4 respectively, where within, if you have got to look at Q3, food security and agrarian report, agrarian reform, we had zero performance. And that zero performance, as you'll see in the next slide, reflects on the support that we had in terms of IDC. If you keep on the very same slide, slide 7, it's around the support that we had from IDC, where we could not garner evidence that would have supported that growth within the respective time from a monitoring and evaluation point of view. But the very same program, if we have got to go through to the fourth quarter, we become aware that they had only achieved 50% of what was expected of them. And therefore, those areas are very important because even in the fourth quarter, if we have got to reflect on what was not achieved from that program, it's a very substantive issue that deals with food security and nutrition program plan that we have got to put in front of the portfolio committee. And that's very important because of the current levels of food insecurity that we have in South Africa. Relating to administration in the fourth quarter, there are also areas that we will touch base on that reflect on the performance of the department generally. Generally, if we have got to say and reflect on the department, honorable members, 2 programs perform very good for the department, and it's Program 2 and Program 4. Program 2 being agricultural production, biosecurity and resources management, and Program 4 being economic development, trade and marketing. The program that is a core program that still has got a few challenges, which we are currently dealing with, is food security and agrarian reform, which we will reflect on later on. The next slide shows graphically how the department has been performing over time. And I think what is important from where we are sitting going into the program is that there has been huge improvements in the performance of the department. However, based on where we would like to be generally, we think that we can actually perform better than where we are because our view is that even in the first quarter, our level of performance should be at 80% plus, so that we can be able then to sustain and be able to reflect on a performance that is above 90 as we go into the fourth quarter. Next slide. On the next slide, we reflect on the areas that were not achieved. As I had indicated earlier on, when we look at food security and agrarian reform, there is a level where we had 38 producers that we had indicated they were supported, but at that stage, validation was not done. So we could not get information that supports the area, and in performance management, once that happens, they are taken as not supported. But subsequently, this is something that has been achieved, and this has been reported in the annual plan, and will, as we present the annual report, be able to show honorable members that this has been actually surpassed. The next slide. The next slide, in terms of Q4, you would recall that this was the only, in slide 10, this was the only one that was not achieved in Q3. And then going into Q4, we need to reflect on what was not achieved in Q4. Now, in Q4, one of those areas was the issue around payments that were to be done, invoices that would be paid within 30 days. We could not pay 6% of this within 80 days due to a variety of reasons, mainly due to us having to deal with the client offices. This is an internal matter. It has got very little to do with the outside to say that the invoices were wrong in terms of coming through. It's an internal discipline matter that we are dealing with to ensure that the client units submit the invoices in time to finance for payments. And we are happy that we are making very good progress in terms of this. And the DDGs who are responsible for the different programs are also getting to the rhythm in terms of ensuring that payments are being made. Next slide. In the next slide, we have got, I will say it's an aspiration, because something that we have got to do with internal resources mostly. It's something that you have got to look at, that we're looking at on an annual basis, we would have 4% of our systems digitalized. Those would include also applications, processing in terms of the various acts that we are having. The latest that we have had in this space being that for the Farm Feeds, Fertilizers, Agricultural Remedies and Stock Remedies Act of 1947, where we had the process in terms of the application digitalized. We had looked at the broader sense to say how did we perform. As at the end of Q4, we were still doing some work, and subsequently we could reflect and say that the performance that was done during that period was actually 4.4% for the annual. So this was achieved, but as at the end of this quarter, we need to say validation of this work could not be done, and therefore we had to report it as not achieved. Next one. Next slide. On the next slide, we are looking at a very important issue that I had reflected on, Honorable Chair. This is one area that really the department has got to shoulder most of it in terms of the National Food Nutrition and Security Plan, which is a plan for government to ensure that we have got good interventions for food security and nutrition in our country. Now, we had a submission that was done by the program, and the program was doing a lot of stakeholder engagements. But the timing in terms of this was lethargic, and we have taken consequence management in terms of this area of work, because failure to submit that plan, which is a blueprint on how do we deal with food security, is something that we take seriously in the department. We are currently way ahead in terms of the consultations. Some weeks ago, we were consulting broadly with civic society and all those who are responsible and have got a role in terms of food security and nutrition to ensure that this plan is in place, and we are confident that we will be able to submit this plan for the minister to sign off and introduce what is in the next slide, which is the council that addresses the national food security and nutrition in our country. Can we move to the next slide, please? The next slide talks to the National Food and Nutrition Security Council, which needs to be functional. I think one area where, in terms of crafting of the APPs, and I had this discussion with the colleagues that the council is there. It has been set up by the presidency. All that we need to do is to ensure that the council has got an agenda and is functional, and we are able to expand on that council. Almost similar, honorable members, to the councils that we have on other areas. Health has got the HIV/AIDS council that we need to also ensure that it's broad-based. It's not only government talking about government issues, but has got an element of also ensuring that civic society also plays a role, because food security and nutrition are broad-based. So we are now, we have sent through, honorable members, not speaking of issues that are happening at the procedural level, we have sent through a submission and letters just to solicit assistance from the presidency to help us to move ahead. Next slide. On the next slide, you can move. You can move, please, Mayor Anastasia. We are not going to concentrate on the areas that have been achieved in Q3. Suffice to say that in Q3, we were able to pay all invoices on time. We were able to ensure that all the targets that were there in Program 2, Program 3, Program 4, were achieved. The only target that we could not achieve during that period was the issue around the support that we had from IDC for the 38 farmers. So there was very good performance in terms of Q3 during that period. On a financial basis, we base our reports on the drawings that we have done from National Treasury. And if we may move to the next slide, we were saying, as at the end of 31 December 2025, the department was at 5 billion, or 64.2% of spending in the department, of the budget at that stage that was sitting at 7.6 billion. So speaking at a very pragmatic way, we had still to spend 2.7 billion during the 3 months that were still outstanding. Now, we also broke it down in terms of the deviations that we had at various programs, with Program 3 being underspent by 549 million. But that program is very important. It is transfers that are normally given from a perspective of the Comprehensive Agricultural Support Program to the provinces. Program 1 was underspent by 276 million, while Program 4 was overspent by 245 million. Now, that 245 million and the overspending, honorable members, was because South Africa last year was hosting the G20. We hosted a number of meetings in terms of G20, and that is why that spending was so high during the period. In Program 2, there was an underspending of 12.2 million. Honorable members would ask why that underspending when we had an outbreak of FMD. Yes, these are the areas that we had to deal with during the period. The branch itself did not have enough funds, and we had to do virements later on to cover for those areas that they were bleeding around, including the control of FMD. We also proceed to give reasons for underspending. At that stage, after the split of the two departments, we were still having payments that were made in terms of compensation of employees coming through from the Department of Land Reform and Rural Development. We will later show that the spend was reflected, and we had to repay or recompense in terms of those. We had a few critical vacant posts last week, as I was indicating to the honorable members. that some of those we had to rethink on how do we deal with them, and until such time that we had submitted a fit for purpose, then we have started in terms of the filling of vacancies, some of them starting October of 2025, just to fill those vacancies. But that process needs to be accelerated to ensure that we are at parity with the posts and we don't overburden those who are working within our system. We had a very serious issue in and around how we deal with the work of procurement, especially around SCM in terms of the engagements. We also had this level of engagement around foot and mouth disease that we were currently dealing with, and the procurement thereof in terms of SCM was dealing well. Sometime last week, Mekomape clearly demonstrated that now there is spending in terms of agri-BEE, but at that stage we had a very slow processing that came from the land bank. And we also had an issue around blended finance that had to go through to the land bank. But all of this money, it's problems that we had in the past, honorable members, because as per the engagements that this August portfolio committee had with the land bank and together with the department, we are currently sitting at a point where the land bank is saying that they would need additional funding just to go through the commitment that they have in their books regarding blended finance. Next slide. We also had a spending summary that we have got to reflect in terms of where we are broadly, and this is captured in terms of the slide that is in front of the portfolio committee during that particular period. And this period is the period in terms of the time for program 1, where 61% was spent in quarter 3. Program 2 was doing well in terms of agricultural production, biosecurity, and natural resource management at 99.4% of the drawings that they had. Food security and agrarian reform was 80.2%, and we also had economic development, trade and marketing at 60.2% of the drawings, and that the department at that stage was at 82.5% spending, which is 6.1 billion of what the budget we had at the stage. Next one. We also had, in terms of the engagements, this is just diametric of what I've said. The next slide. Now, the areas that we are having an outlined was the issue that I had to reflect in terms of compensation of employees and how we had to deal with the NMOC process and the closing out and the payments that we had to do and reflect. Goods and services, at that stage of our program, we had an under expenditure of close to 517 million, which were the projects that we have within the CD functions that did not process as quickly as we would have wanted to have those outlined. Now, there were also a few areas that we had to deal with from a Department of Public Works and Infrastructure, where they had a few areas that they had to deal with our laboratories, which we have in Stellenbosch, and which had to get renewal in January of 2026. Now, on transfers and subsidies, which is the major component of the budget of the department, we had a deviation of just above 861 million, where we had delays in terms of the transfers of blended finance and the disbursement that is happening currently that was happening then with the land bank, which had an impact on what we had to deal. On payment for capitals, assets that we had in the department, we had an underspending of just 4.6 million, which I will not talk to. Next slide. Now, The broader issues that we have a reflection on would be around the economic classifications in terms of the spending, where you have got payments, transfers, and subsidies, and also capital assets that we reflect on. We still reflect on the very same 82.5% spend, but we then look at it from a perspective of economic classification or categorization, where in terms of payments, it was 71.3% spent. In terms of transfers and subsidies, it was 89.2%. And lastly, in terms of capital assets, it was 98.9%. But if we have got to make a comparative analysis, you'll see that in terms of capital assets, our budget is quite low. And next slide. This is just a pie chart that reflects the slide that we have just had for ease of reference. Next slide. We also had an action plan which we had to look at in terms of the action plan. Now, the two departments, the Department of Agriculture and Land Reform and Rural Development, because of the intricate manner in which we were related, and because of the split that we had and the challenges that we had in terms of the split, one of those meaning that some of the critical big posts would have to be split between the two departments. And at any given rate, both departments, let me just put it like that, both departments would struggle. Us as the Department of Agriculture struggling from an HR point of view and also from a finance point of view, because we're sitting even now without a CFO, which we have recommended for the filling of that vacancy. We had to ensure that we sign a memorandum of understanding that would allow us to feed off each other and at some stages pay for each other's expenses as we do them at separate areas, and ensure that the service delivery is not impacted upon. And there were payments that were made to 514, which we processed at the end of the financial year, mainly in terms of those payments that we were doing. Because of this arrangement, we also have got an understanding of employees that would be assisting agriculture at times or assisting land reform and rural development, and we would be making these payments, both departments, either way, to ensure that we offset the current capacity challenges that we have. Now, at that stage, I need to pause here. We had tried to appoint a financial management services chief director who would assist us going forward. And this is what transpired. Once he got into the public service, looked at what we had and where we are going, he left a note with the department and he said, with the current splitting that you are having and the imbalanced way in which the department is having until it has got a fit for purpose structure, he is afraid that it's going to be very difficult to ensure that the department moves smoothly. And he duly resigned, seeing that the challenges were quite high in terms of the stakes and looking at what the split had done to both departments. And I need to make that re-emphasis on both departments, because finance in itself, if you have got to look at it broadly, it has got controls that would make sure that, for instance, the very same person who processes one item would not be the very same who then proceeds with it to the next level. Those controls that we have to ensure that there is good governance in terms of the system, some of those compromised with a split, and we're currently ensuring that it's been done. Now, with the outbreak of FMD, honorable members, we had to do a Section 92 exemption from the Minister of Finance to be able to utilize almost 359 million that we had in the department as possible savings. Now, you should be aware that we had made those possible savings as early to ensure that we can reflect on those. That was given by National Treasury, but it was given too close to the end of the financial year that some of those areas would then be a subject of a rollover request that we have done. Honorable members would know that last week, as the honorable members were engaging with the provincial departments, one of the areas that they had continuously reflected on was how they would want to have additional resources. And those resources were part and parcel of that money that was locked in the 359 million that is currently needing rollover funds. We were able to spend most of that money in terms of the procurement of vaccines, but without any doubt, we would need that money to roll over and ensure that we are on par with the control of FMD. Now, the area around the land bank has been dealt with earlier on, and the Agri-BE was dealt with, which I think last week the honorable members were able to also ask questions, which I think we were able to respond through DDG Kwena, and also reflecting on the disbursements that we have had on the areas that the land bank had, just to reflect and ensure that members would then be able to put specificity and time to the event. The land bank had its system infiltrated in and around January, and there was a lot of work that could not be done during that time as they were trying to set up after having that cyber attack on their system. Next slide. On the next slide, we reflect on the conditional grant spending summary, where we were reflecting how the different areas spend. And this is a point of real concern. And firstly, we start with CASP, where we had 83% spent. And honorable members, 83% spent in an area where we have got food security challenges. It's a big concern. However, it should be borne in mind that there is a process in terms of approving projects. That process involves provinces coming through with their project plans. They are engaged with an expert national panel, which then looks at the projects and okays the projects. Then the projects have got to be implemented. At times, these projects are not implemented because the project planning phase of it might not have been complete as at that time. And some of the times, the provinces would like to change the programs, even the projects, just to ensure that they can move with speed. And therefore, those changes, sometimes done at the end of the financial year, would not be easy to effect. But I also have got to admit the failures of us as national department in terms of, at times, releasing that money that they have got to utilize, because at times they would come in, reflect that there is a level of challenges, and then we withhold almost the whole amount instead of just withholding and giving over in terms of what they already have instead of concentrate on other areas. There were instances in terms of Gauteng that I thought that we could have done better as the national department going forward. But what is the center is that we need to ensure that every cent spent is value for money in terms of output, whether it's for CASP, Ilima Letsema, or land care. In terms of Ilima Letsema, same challenges, the spending 82.6%. Honorable members, we have over time with National Treasury agreed that these two programs would need to be collapsed so that it's only one system that we talk to, and it's the Comprehensive Agricultural Support Program. But it still has got distinction in terms of the target that we have, with Ilima Letsema concentrating on ensuring that both subsistence and smallholder farmers' production inputs are secured. The land care program, which is a program that supports soil health and also ensuring that we have got good agricultural practices, spent 97.1% of its spending. Overall, we have got 83.7% spending in an area of conditional grant spending. Now, the biggest issue in terms of conditional grants, I think that honorable members would be rightful in terms of asking, is there still a need for conditional grant funding in a system where it is expected that the provinces should budget mainly for the programs that they have? I would indicate to honorable members that we just need to have a reflection in terms of the equitable share or the budget spending that we have in the different provinces. Except for a few provinces, the level of equitable share allocations coming from provincial treasuries to the departments of agriculture is dwindling to an extent that the conditional grants are now starting to play a major role in terms of how the provinces are spending. And any attempt just to withdraw this would lead to the system just collapsing. And one of the areas that we need to concentrate on, I think from our side, we have already started asking and navigating towards that position, is to ensure that the equitable share is also assisted in terms of an increase, so that we can be able to, together with the provinces, be able to ensure that the money that is in agriculture is enough to ensure that there is a good development in our sector. Next slide. Next slide. We reflect in terms of Q4, Chair, and I will move quickly through this because it's towards the financial year, and most of this would be covered within the annual report, both in the annual financial statements and also in the annual report that would also reflect on the non-financial performance of the department, to just indicate that as we look at the department broadly, we had an underspending to 379 million, or 4.8% of the budget. And all of those are reflected in terms of administration, 10.5% underspent. The program 2 that we have in terms of this 7.9% underspent. Program 3, which is mainly transferred, is just over 1.2% underspent, and we have got 2.5% in terms of economic development, trade and marketing. In terms of economic classification, compensation of employees, we have spent 95.3%, goods and services 81.4%, payment for capital assets 87%, and transfers and subsidies 99.8%. And in all of this, the issues were the vacancies, and the areas that we had to deal was the environments. We had moved that money towards the assistance to deal with FMD, some of those funds that we are still having to deal with the National Treasury for rollover, which we think we might be able to succeed with. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. We have already spoken to this. Next slide. Next slide. Now, we reflect again on in terms of where the spending was as at the end of the financial year. Just a tad increase from the third quarter, leading to 91.2%. I'll reiterate the importance of these grant funding mechanisms in terms of where we are. We would say that because of these funds are transferred in terms of the Division of Revenue Act, we are responsible in terms of accounting for this, And it's something that we have got to look at and be agile in terms of the areas that have been identified that led to underspending. Any underspending in terms of this area is a direct underspending in terms of food security. And 91.2% as at the end of the financial year is something that we are not happy with and we'll have to address jointly because from both sides, whether national governments or the provinces, there are areas that we have got to tighten up on, and this tightening up both at MinTech and at MinMec are being done, Honorable Chair and Honorable Members. Next slide. We show in terms of these areas where we had our big environments and where these environments went. The biggest beneficiary or benefactors in terms of this were Program 2, and all of the money went into the FMD engagements. And we are not happy with this because it only says that at the end of the day, if we cannot have the money that we can impose requirements on at the end of the financial year or even during the course of the year, we will not be able to deal with the current outbreaks of FMD. This we were assisted because we had FMD at the center. But what needs to be said to the honorable members is that these environments are actually over and above what is allowed because we had to go, in terms of sections, to go back to National Treasury. And this is a sign in terms of the imbalance that we might have going forward dealing with FMD. And it is important, as we had indicated last week, that we would need to then ensure that there is a declaration or agitate for a declaration of a national disaster so that we can get more money, so that we don't take money away from different spending areas, money that could have assisted in the planting season towards FMD. Next slide. We were reflecting in terms of that area of underspending that we have had. And I had indicated to the honorable members that there are rollover funds that we need to get from a national treasury, which will offset part of the underspending. And we have got evidence towards it, the 183 million on foot and mouth, and then 2.9 that we have for ICT, where we had very good outcomes of digitalization of 4.4% of our systems during that particular time, something that we need to do more of this year. Next slide. Honorable Chair, one of the areas that you always request us to do is to ensure that we give you updates in terms of the implementation of management action plans based on AGSA 2024-2025 findings. We had 30 findings as the Department of Agriculture. We have got 14 of those fully implemented. We had 13 partially implemented, and we had 3 that were not implemented. The 3 that were not implemented are in the areas, 1 in the area of HRM and the 2 in the area of ICT. Most of those mainly because of the financial resource issue. I will go through them as we move ahead. Now, the partially implemented also have got a level of worry because they also have got dependencies that we have got to structurally deal with before we can say we have dealt with all these findings accordingly. And therefore, if we have got to look at them from a management perspective or a strategic management perspective, some of them, because they had not been concluded, they will have repeated findings, but those findings would be dealt with in terms of what we have done as the department going into this financial year. Next slide. The first one, in terms of the engagement, where the declaration in terms of financial notes that we had to do for the ARC. And we have taken that into account in terms of how we deal with advance payments. There was a circular that we had dealt with within the department. And without taking thunder from what we are having, one of the areas that we had found subsequent to the work that was done by the colleagues was the issue around advance payments now being done through other payments, which we have got to nip in the bud in terms of the department. The second element was the issue around the payments within 30 days, which we had in the third quarter demonstrated that we can do it. In the fourth quarter, there was an issue around the client departments, which from a discipline point of view, the managers responsible have got to deal with it to ensure that it does not happen, because it's demonstrable that we are able to pay within 30 days. Next slide. The next slide deals with also on expenditure, dealing with irregular, fruitless, and wasteful expenditure. The issue is around consequence management. I should say that HR here today, there is a process that we have engaged in to ensure that we deal with the issues around those referred to HR. And we have ensured that we have got the Finance Compliance Committee in place so that we can be able to deal with the issues. But progress report is being given in terms of where we are in terms of consequence management of matters that are in the department. Fund 4, the next slide. These areas have been fully dealt with. It was an issue around the NAMC, around adjustments, and we also had an issue around the modified cash standards that we had to do an update on around prepayments and advances. These were implemented. We can move to the next slide. I'll also only deal with the partially implemented and those that have not been implemented. Now there's an area. No, the previous slide, colleague. Previous slide. Previous slide. Yeah. We looking now on the areas that we had misstatements and deficiencies in terms of the paragraphs. The colleagues who are responsible for AFSs in the department are issuing interim financial statements, and these statements are being looked at differently to just having the whole annual financial statements being done. And we have been able to compile during that period in 2025 the interim financial statements just to reflect on the issues. We also committed and did this and submitted to the chief audit executive. I think it's very important to pause here and say that one of those difficulties that we have in honorable members is just the number of people who are able to do this work. And this is very important work for the department. But proudly indicated that the colleagues have to date done relatively well compared to what we could have done if the colleagues were not committed, focused, and being able to deliver on what is required. The next one that was done was the conditional grants in terms of disclosure. I'll not go into that. I will then move into the next element of our reflection, where we were expected to maintain a proper record in terms of the areas that would be accessible to deal with issues that were identified in terms of Section 40 of the PFMA. We have tried in terms of ensuring that there is an accountability matrix here, honorable members. Already in 2024-2025, we had implemented procedures to deal with issues that were identified. We had re-implemented those when we were still with Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development. And our colleagues at Financial Management had engaged the directors and started implementing this with them. It is quite tried that in my engagements with the colleagues, I've also realized that there would be a need for us to have just a total rehaul of how we function and overhaul of how we function. Because in any given circumstance, Honorable Chair, at the apex of work, it's legislation, it's policy, and then you start having standards and SOPs. And in the absence of those SOPs, together with systems, it becomes very difficult then to tie back towards finance, because all of those have got to be tied back. I have identified these areas in engagements with the executive management of the department to say we need to close those gaps so that we can move towards a clean audit in the department. Next slide. The next slide dealt with money that was with the National Agricultural Marketing Council, money that was given as an advance in 2023, which is in the last engagement. Now, from where we were, we had this refund that was made by the NMC on the 31st of March. We're just awaiting to get the reports from NMC in terms of the closeout reports for their National Red Meat Development Program, and that the reports would have to have closeout in terms of what was spent, the assets that were there, so that we can be able to fully account for that, and will fully reflect this with the portfolio committee as and when the colleagues have submitted the reports. Next slide. We have the issue around certification of payrolls by the department. We reported that the colleagues at HRM are still busy in terms of ensuring that they certify and they complete look at the way of how do we deal with ensuring that the colleagues are placed at the right cost centers. As at the time that we had to transfer, there were a few colleagues who were paid at different centers. So that process of just ensuring that everybody's paid from the same center is unfolding as we speak, and would be completed, and Mekhang, should it be completed, Mekhang would be able to also reflect on that because between the 31st of March and now, it should have been completed. And now there's an issue around the capturing of leave, and there was sampling of leave that was captured on person. The leave is now captured, and we are now looking at verification of that leave. But I can safely say that in terms of HR, looking at the audit that we have, this matter would be a matter that would have been handled by HR quite successfully. Next slide. There are two items here, is in terms of the skills audit, and the other one refers to the competency assessment of members of the SMS. In terms of the matter that we deal with in terms of skill audit, we still have got to conduct that skills audit, but the measures in terms of ensuring that we are ready for that have been put in place regarding the competency assessments. There has only been 4% of non-compliance in terms of the areas that we have identified. We have signed out as the department consequence management for those who could not submit, and on those members who have got an incongruence between what they would want to do in terms of their performance vis-a-vis improving themselves. There's that engagement, usual engagement, to ensure that they address these issues between the managers in terms of personal development plans. They are now supposed to be incorporated into the plans or as a mandate, and they are mandatory. It needs to be there because in a public service where continuous improvement is not guaranteed, then we are bound to not be advancing MTDP area of improvement number 3. The next slide. This has been done in terms of compulsory orientation of those joining public service. Next one. We have got 2 that I had referred to, Honorable Chair, earlier on around ICT, around vulnerability management in the department. In the absence of the area, we are more bound to have security incidents happening in the department. We need to have the server refreshed, and we had it refreshed in 2026. We had penetration tests that were done by one state organ, and we think that we will be able to manage this area. But most of it, in terms of this IT environment, Honorable Chair and Honorable Members, the solutions would need us to have a backup in terms of financial resources to ensure that the unit is adequately resourced so that we can deal with this. Now, there's also an issue that we had to drill with in terms of data loss prevention, or DLP as they call it, that we had to deal with a system that would ensure that we lodge documents digitally. We started off with that system, engagement in terms of the system. And then we had a problem in terms of the servers. We have procured those servers as indicated on top, and we will be starting off with a program of ensuring that we can then be able to file our documents online as part and parcel of us moving ahead. I would like to reiterate the issues around ICT are mainly finance related, so that we can be able to move into the next phase of ICT development in our system, in our sector, and also in the department. Next slide. All of those were achieved, Chair. In the engagements around food security and agrarian reform, Chair, there was an issue around prepayments and advances around the Presidential Employment Stimulus Initiative, which expired some time back. And there were findings that were there. I can safely report that even this matter, Chair, as we come and report in later on, it will be shown that we had dealt with the matter in terms of the department. There's also an issue that refers to the vouchers that were done in 2021-2022. We will also be able to reflect in terms of this element and where we are in the final report, because those were audited and the Auditor General gave an opinion in terms of what the branch and the department had done during this period on the 2 areas. Thank you very much, colleague. If we can just go to finding 23 and 24. The issue that we have had around the fruitless and wasteful expenditure, which dealt with documentation that the department had to deal with around PACE, the very same Presidential Employment Stimulus Initiative, has been received and dealt with by the branch accordingly, Honorable Chair and Honorable Members. Next slide. During this period, Honorable Members, there's a program of the department that dealt with Mafisa, which is a micro-agricultural finance system that we had in place for South African farmers to ensure that they don't take huge loans from elsewhere. We had intermediaries that we were had to deal with. And this work is continuing. We would want to have every cent that was taken from government, from intermediaries, that's lying with intermediaries, to be paid back so that we can be able to close out in terms of the books and make a determination whether we continue or discontinue Mafisa. For now, we have got very good intermediaries like the South African Sugar Association, who are really making sure that their farmers are assisted through this program. Now, once we have concluded on this, we can be able to report to Parliament around Mafisa as a program and how it proceeds going ahead, because a major report is needed from Mafisa for a determination to be made vis-a-vis the big amounts that were spent in terms of Mafisa and the intermediaries that are there. The next one around the intermediaries was done at 28, 29, 30. As you go ahead, man. We then proceed to indicate to honorable members that the action plan has been implemented. We have reflected in terms of the numbers of the 30 that we have had, that the 3 that have not been implemented, we are vigorously working on those that have been started. Some of them have been concluded after the audit that we are having. Some of them still to proceed in the next year would lead to us to have a repeat finding, which we are not proud of. But what we can signify is that there is work. Most of it might be dependent on the areas that we have on the fit for purpose and being fully functional as the department. We pause here, Chair, and our apologies for 2 things. The issues in terms of the slide numbers that were inconsistent, I apologize for that, and also for taking long in terms of the presentation. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you so much, DG, for taking us through a very comprehensive presentation today. I'm now going to give an opportunity to honorable members to engage with the presentation. I'm trying to check on the platform how many members would like to engage with the presentation. I only see Honorable Zwela Kemtetwa. Yeah, he's going to be followed by Honorable Trolip. And I suspect UAT is the doctor. Yes, we only have 3 hands on the platform. And then the last person who's going to engage with the presentation is Honorable Mtritam. In that sequence, Honorable Mtetwa.
Thanks, Chair, and greetings to fellow honorable members, and greetings to our officials, greetings to the DG, and to our political principals who are absent, but let them know that we are greeting them. Let me go straight to my submissions in this presentation. I will base most of my commentary on areas where you couldn't perform well, and among them is the food security aspect. And I will then break down the causative factors that led to you not being able to actually deliver on that it is systematic and structural in nature. That's why you are set up for failure. If you look at the current state of agriculture now, you will find that it is driven by mainly white commercial farmers. And most of your reporting and anything you report is happening at the private sector level. So there is less activity at the government level. Yet you are sitting with a backlog of 92%, which are majority Black and previously disadvantaged in the sector of agriculture. And you are controlled by the 8%, which is white. and concentrating the entire value chain of the economy of agriculture. So you have a misnomer already. The structuring is already wrong. And the continuity of agriculture since 94 till today has not changed. It is actually using the old principles of colonies of exploitation, colonies of settlement, and colonies of contestation. I'll tell you why I'm raising this part. Most of the white farmers that are producing food for or in this country, using farmland in this country, they are primarily producing for the export market. And then secondary, the remainder or whatever remains that are your lower grades of food is then remaining in the shelves and meant for distribution also through shops that we must buy that food. But most of your prime food goes to abroad. This is where colonies of contestation, exploitation comes in. That is still being done today. So if we are food insecure as a country, it is a design by the colonial order that continues to influence agriculture. That's why there's shortage of food. But we are not short of land. Land is there, but it is given people who are selfish, who only consider for personal profit maximization at the expense of national agenda to feed the nation. As a result, you have a white person owning a farm, but we have the entire nation that has no farm dependent on to produce its food, not for commercial reason, just for sustenance. So then this disparity must be actually met. So this is what I'm actually proposing, is that you need to then do an audit of farms that will be set aside for food security for national interest purpose. Then you will not have a problem of food insecurity, because we know that certain farms are ring-fenced for national food security, not for commercial reasons. But in this case, we are driven by commerce, and that is why we are sitting with the problem that we have. So that we need to address. Furthermore, you have agribusiness. Agribusiness is the concentration of the entire value chain owners who control the agricultural sector, and are all white with one black person, Ubab Mahlobo, who's an economist, and then it makes it like it is a multi-racial, whereas it is not, it's white. Now we need to come up with an orientation in the department that will focus on what will be called black agribusiness, wherein the concentration of all factors of production that are involved in the agricultural sector will go specifically to blacks. Because the people you have a problem with are blacks who are outside the farming industry or sector, but there is no focus on them. If you do have a focus, you will give them farms, and after having farms, they don't have banking, which will sustain their workmanship and productivity. They don't control the marketing. They don't control the offtake agreements that are out there abroad. And then when money comes and circulates in the agricultural sector, it's circulating around the same 8% white people, which are only self-serving. They are not serving a nation. And these are things that we need to address. When I compare the loss of the asset register of the state wherein state farms were involved, it is during the time when the government of national unity in 97 walked out of the government of national unity. The only people who know the asset register of the state that got lost, it will be the white people who left government, because it is them who were in government, and they know that list, that it had so much funds, because the minister incumbent at the time at Public Works complained about the loss of that asset register. But all we're finding is that everyone who is white, mostly, they are now owning farms. Where are the farms that were state farms, which were farming for the nation? Because at that time in the old order, apartheid, national meant whites only.
But in the democratic dispensation, national means everyone, including whites. But you still have those who were previously disadvantaged, still disadvantaged in the democratic dispensation. Then it means we have a problem. We need to sort this out. May I part with the following observation? The CEO of most of the farming businesses were part of a meeting which Ubaba Mandela addressed, where they asked him to compromise on the plight of Black people, who also would have loved to see nationalization of the agricultural sector, but they said he must compromise to protect their interests and properties. After protection, it worked against the national agenda of getting us in the mainstream agricultural sector. Today, the agriculture sector is driven by private sector who are self-seeking and who are racial, and they don't want other race. And you see that through the Agri-BE I just saw now in your presentation. It says some funds were taken for Agri-BE for purchase of foot and mouth disease vaccine. How do you change an agenda of previously disadvantage, which would have helped, and then you should change it for another program which is competing in terms of interest? But the Agri-BE is being sabotaged through the court. The Expropriation Act is now being challenged. That is not constitutional, yet it was constitutional in 1975 when expropriation of Black farms was taken by the white order. Today, when Blacks are supposed to enjoy the same benefit, white commercial farmers, AfriForum, DA, they are saying that it is unconstitutional. What is unconstitutional is what they did in 1975. If you challenge that, rather bring back all the farms that you took through expropriation, and then you can annul and get rid of this Expropriation Act, because anyway, it was wrong in the first place. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Mthethwa. We are now moving to Honorable Twalib.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. I'm going to restrict myself to asking questions on the presentation, quarter 3 and fourth quarter, rather than making political commentary, because there are no political representatives of the department in the meeting. So I think it's going to be very difficult for the DG to respond to political commentary. But having said that, I want the DG, you know, Chair, it's very easy to listen to the DG talk, especially presenting a presentation like this. It's as if he's presenting to the Auditor General or to Treasury, and we are neither. We are members of a committee, so sometimes we might not have all the information or the jargon. But I am very concerned, and I'd like to hear the DG speak more specifically about the poor performance of the administration at 33%, and then around food security and agrarian reform support, 40% achievement. Now, he made mention of the land bank, cyber attack, slow transfers, declarations, and suspense accounts of the 38 farmers involved. But the blended finance scheme has been exposed by our own oversight as being problematic. And the DG says that this report will be validated and surpassed in the annual report. Now, my question is, why is there reflection in the annual report up to date as opposed to the quarterly reports? That doesn't make sense to me. So the DG will please clarify that. Then the issue around payment within 30 days. The DG said that it's around internal discipline matter where clients are not submitting on time. Surely the 30-day requirement is 30 days from submission, not therefore it cannot be the client's late submission. 30 days is only counted from submission by a client. So could the DG please clarify that? And then around the National Food Nutrition Support Program, the DG says there are delays in obtaining stakeholder engagement, and failure of this is a problem, and it results in food security red flags. Now, I just want to make some comments around food security, because I think there's a misconception. Food security is based on agricultural products that are consumed, especially as staple foods, maize, wheat, and other staples. And most of our agricultural exports from the commercial sector are based on wool and mohair, citrus primarily, and some deciduous fruit. Very little exports of staples. In fact, we're a net importer of many of the staples. So my question to the DG is, why has the transformation of the agricultural sector not been accompanied by commensurate production of food, primary food? Because this is the area where we've seen really poor performance, especially around the blended finance scheme, not being able to cope and not being flexible. We saw it in our own reports where farmers made applications for blended finance scheme to plant maize. The administrative process took too long. The maize planting deadline came and went. Then the applicants asked for permission to plant sunflowers because that season had not been, had not passed, and the department and the land bank couldn't give them permission to do that. So it resulted in farmers planting maize well past the maize planting deadline, and the production was severely compromised, despite the fact that we spent the same amount of money. So I'd like to hear the DG speaking about commensurate production increase with funding into agricultural transformation. Then I'm concerned that the DG, when he was speaking around national food and nutritional security, and he said it was not fully functional because they needed to follow up with the presidency. Now, the Department of Agriculture doesn't obviously operate in a vacuum, but for the department to say they are waiting for the presidency doesn't make sense to me. So could the DG clarify that? Then on page 42 in the presentation, I'm a little concerned because I didn't understand the numbers. The admin program shows 62.6% expenditure. And the first slide on page 42 shows 99% achievement. Yet it only, it shows 99%. Could that slide please just be flattened so that I could speak to it? It's page 42, Chair. I need it flattened on the screen so that I can put my question.
Please assist by flighting slide 43.
Slide 42, please.
42.
Yeah. All right, I'll find it on my own gadget. Yeah, there we go. Thanks, Chair. So what I don't understand in that slide under corporate support services, departmental management, etc., that all shows a Department of Agriculture production and BioNat achievement of, unless I'm reading it incorrectly, is the administration total of 62% made up of these numbers below, or is it 99% because they don't reflect the numbers above? Then my question was, under administration, it shows 62.6% expenditure, but those numbers listed below that show a 99.4% achievement, which doesn't add up to me. So maybe the DG could speak to that and clarify. Then, Chairperson, around Comprehensive Agricultural Support Program. What worries me here is that low expenditure, especially as this is part of food expenditure program, is a concern. The Department of Agriculture's failure and the provincial failure to spend results in slow expenditure as per the Division of Revenue Act. Now, the DG mentioned Ilima Letsima, and the question is, the outputs versus outcomes of this program, Comprehensive Agricultural Support Program. We have seen it in our own oversight that a lot of money is being spent through the CASP grant, but we don't see the outcomes being commensurate with the amount of money being spent. And then, Chair, my last question is around environments. We've seen under Program 2, the FND engagement, that the environment exceeded the allowed amount by Treasury. And we understand that FMD is a national disaster, but it's not a new phenomenon. And we must be careful that we don't become the Department of Foot and Mouth Disease. And we're seeing rollovers, environment related to foot and mouth disease across the board. And we might be losing focus on some of the other really important issues like food security, as mentioned in the program. Thanks very much, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Mqitama.
Chairperson.
I can't see Honorable Mahlatsi anymore.
Oh, I thought maybe because you saw me, I can lower my hand.
All right. Okay, it's fine. You can talk.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Khotso ma Afrika. Now, greetings to all the colleagues, the department, and to all the women on the platform. Happy belated Women's Day, but happy Women's Month. Colleagues, the Director General reports that Q3 targets of 25 producer support through the blended finance scheme was not achieved, with an output of 0. He subsequently stated that approximately 38 producers were validated after APP reporting and that the annual target of 100 was achieved. This is problematic because the AGSA finding in the same presentation says that the department previously lacked adequate means of verification for this indicator. AGSA specifically identified the absence of sufficiently verifiable documentation and recommended producer acknowledgement, financial records from participating institutions, delivery notes, and potentially independent verification. Even more importantly, the audit findings state that AGSA could not verify the reliability of the reported support because adequate support evidence has not been provided. Now, my question then to the department is that, how can the department claim that the annual target of 100 producers was achieved when AGSA previously could not verify the reliability of the reported beneficiary figures? How many of the 100 producers have now been independently verified? How much money was actually disbursed to each producer? How much of the 546 million advanced to the land bank had actually reached beneficiaries by the 31st of March 2026? How much of 546 million remain uncleared or sitting in suspense accounts for a year end? Can the department, this they can do in writing, can the department provide a committee with a beneficiary level schedule showing the province, the producer, amount approved, amount disbursed, and date of disbursement? Now, on the question of Agri-BEE and transformation, the department reports that an annual Agri-BEE funds report was compiled but this is an activity or an output indicator rather than an outcome indicator. The presentation does not sufficiently demonstrate how many Black producers benefited, how much money was dispersed, what enterprise survived, how much job was created, the production increased, the turnover generated, geographic distribution, gender, youth participation. Chairperson, I submit.
Thank you so much, Honorable Mqitama.
Thank you, Chair. Most of the colleagues have covered some of the points I wanted to raise. But I just want to emphasize that, the overall performance of the department is worrying. Not only that, the two key areas, which is the empowerment of agriculture, Black agriculturers, and the food security, are the most worrying areas which must be prioritized in this department. We need to know how many Black farmers are being created into the commercial sector. That's a key matter because it is about transformation of the racist and colonial settler agricultural sector, which is white dominated. We are almost 32 years into democracy, but that sector remains completely white. So this department's critical input must be on creating of a Black commercial agricultural class. And I find that there is a very limited engagement here. And it's very worrying. Then the issue of food security. The current agricultural sector produces food for profit maximization and through the export of produce. And then, of course, the critical foods which are needed by South Africans end up being imported. So there is a mismatch between what the agricultural sector is doing and the national needs. So we need to change that. I think that maybe we need to even consider a legislation that would insist that national food security must be prioritized before the export markets are being considered. And they must compel the agricultural sector to produce the foods that are needed in the country before considering these commercial products which are needed externally. We can't have a situation where over 60% of the population is food insecure. At the same time, the agricultural sector is making lots of shocking profits from export. It's a big mismatch, and it does not show a commitment to a national sovereignty. It does not show patriotism. It actually defines the agricultural sector as basically more colonial and mercenary-like. We can't. Our people lack food in this country. Our children are stunted, but the agricultural sector is making lots of profit through exporting food. So I think that the department has to start thinking seriously about how we make sure that we prioritize South Africans through this sector and guide white agriculture to be more patriotic. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. We're moving to Honorable Aris.
Yeah, good afternoon, Chair. Thank you very much, Chair. Chair, my question to the department is that the department claims to be performing when it's achieved only 62% of its targets in the fourth quarter. My question is, who must take administrative responsibility for the failure of not achieving these targets? And then the department spent 7.567 billion while leaving 379.7 million unspent. And then how much of this money was lost because of incompetence, poor planning, and procurement failure? And again, the question of accountability, who will be held accountable? And Chairperson, how can the department spend 98.8% of the Program 3 budget while achieving 50% of its targets? Does this not demonstrate that money is being spent without sufficient evidence of actual service delivery to farmers and our communities? And then the department failed to meet its target on blended finance, and many of the previous speakers did speak about this one. But I want to know how many black and emerging farmers were supposed to benefit, and how many actually benefited, and how much money intent for these farmers remain undistributed. They must provide us with a report on that, Chair. And why must farmers continue waiting for support? Because the department cannot complete basic beneficial verification. How many farmers lost an entire production season because of these administrative failures? Because of the lack of the department, many of these farmers are losing, in a specific season. And then, Chair, consequence management has been implemented against officials. What consequence management is being implemented against officials responsible for the outstanding audit findings? And the reason for that question, we do not want another plan. We want names. We want the responsibilities, deadlines, and consequences. Because we keep on getting reports with outstanding audit findings year after year, and nothing happened. Nobody been held accountable. We need consequence management. And then, Chair, there's also, they must tell us, we keep on getting every year repeating findings from previous year. And why is taxpayers continue to pay for the same mistakes year after year? Because there's no improvement, Chairperson. Every year we hear the same findings, and it is just nothing. And then my last question, the department had 2,162 employees against a target of 2,433. How many critical vacancies are currently affecting service delivery? And why should there be more funding approved for posts that the department cannot fill? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Aris. We are moving to Honorable Davis.
Morning, Chair, and morning, everyone on the platform. And thank you for the department for the presentation. Chair, my issues is on Program 1. The first and second quarter performance on Program 1, the administration experienced the most significant challenges in 2025 and 2026 book year. In the second quarter, the program failed to meet its targets. My question to the department is, what did they do after they saw that the department is not going to meet its targets? Then on the development of the fit for purpose structures, Chair, it also remains outstanding to you to continue consultation within the department. Why was there so many consultations, Chair, and why up till now we cannot have a clear answer from the department on when this fit for purpose structure will be implemented? Then, Chair, on the finances, the interim, in terms of the Auditor Improvement Plan, only 15 findings of the 30 has been fully implemented. Why? Because what was flagged from the internal audit was the information and communication technology, the financial reporting, and expenditure management. So can the department just tell us why that happened? Because last time when the DG and his team reported on that, they said they already have a plan to make sure that those things don't happen again. And then on the food and nutrition security policy was not submitted to the Minister for approval, Chair. Only a draft a document has been shared with external stakeholders. I want to know why. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, honorable members. I'm also going to add DG and your team on questions that honorable members have already raised. Mine is on environment and budgetary allocation, as already indicated by honorable members. For instance, what I pick up from the report is that there is 667 million which has been shifted from administration, which is program number 1, and 405 million which has been shifted from program 4, economic development. We understand that FMD has been classified as a disaster. However, I just want to get from your side what may be the implications on program 1 and 4 in relation to the funds that have been shifted from those two programs, because obviously it is going to have some implications. And how best are you going to mitigate those risks that you are going to unpack before the portfolio committee? The second part, DG, is I'm looking at again, because it's one of the programs that we are going to measure our performance as far as transformation is concerned in the country. I'm looking at program 4, economic development, trade and marketing, that the actual spending was 278.8 million, or 90%, which was 30.9 million, or 10% lower than the projected spending of 309.7 million. And the underspending is mainly due to the delays in the implementation of cooperatives and enterprise development projects, as the establishment of new project approval committee took longer than planned. And additionally, the underspending resulted from delays in transferring the Agri-BE funds to the land bank, owing to slow progress in dispersing accumulated funds from prior years to qualifying beneficiaries. What measures have you put in place then to address this challenge? What is it that you are going to do to turn things around? And also, when you look both in program 3 and 4, also linking with the environment that we have, or reallocation of funds, and broadly so. Can you, as the department, maybe share with us whether these interventions on program 2, 3, 4 are fundamentally changing the structure of South African agriculture, and what measurable evidence can the department provide that its programs are accelerating transformation, expanding Black ownership and participation, are creating sustainable rural employment, and improving food security and reducing historically inequalities in the agricultural value chain. So if we can get some level of understanding and interventions, and maybe some of evidence that you can provide in this regard. I'm then bringing the meeting back to you, DG, and your technical team so that you can provide responses to honorable members. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair and honorable members. We are sitting in a very unenviable situation in Pretoria. We do not have electricity with the gadgets that we are running, but we will try and ensure that we run through the meeting. If I join from another gadget, don't be surprised. That would mean that my battery power has seriously been diminished to that extent. Honorable Chair, honorable members, let me do this so that the colleagues can also have their indications. Firstly, let me go to the areas of human resource development in the department. Mekang will respond to the issues around the implementation of the FFP and how it impacts the department going forward. We will then go to finance, to Ndate Ramashia, who will just touch base in terms of the areas of spending, of how the department has dealt with a variety of issues, including the environments that we have reflected on. I'll go to Mebo Tselin. She will talk about the areas of the blended finance, CASP, and how they reflect for the engagements in the department. And then I'll conclude with Me Komape, who will reflect around the matters on agri-BEE and general transformation in the sector. I will then take through the remaining questions, especially at the accountability level on the matters raised. With your permission, may I present the colleagues who will be speaking in that order. Mekang, Ndate Ramashia, Me Butseling, and Me Komape in that departmental requested order. Thank you.
Thank you very much, DG, and good morning, honorable Portfolio Committee members. I rise to answer the question on the fit for purpose organizational structure as raised by Honorable Member Honorable Member Davis. I need to establish and emphasize the fact that in terms of the APP of the department, my apology, in terms of the APP of the department, we had endeavored as a department that the DG would approve, would have had the FFP approved by the end of the financial year. Indeed, that was the fact. It was approved by the DG by the end of the financial year 2025-2026. However, after approval and the fit for purpose structure went out of the DG's hands, it then goes to the minister and then goes to the DPSA. At the present moment, as we speak, it is now for concurrence at the DPSA. We need to note that we submitted an ideal FFP, the one that is really linked or aligned to the departmental strategic plan. The FFP that we developed is one that, after consultation and analysis and applying OD principles, we were convinced as HR and the management of the department that this is an FFP that will take us forward and ensure that all that needs to be done in the sector and in the department will be done. But the COE allocation is not enabling us to really achieve what we need to achieve. Then we realized that we need to engage the DPSA and let the DPSA in that presentation, in that memo, in the business case that went to the DPSA. There is clearly what will indicate there is a deficit that we had identified and indicated to the DPSA that we have a deficit of 343,502,247, almost 3.4 million, or one can say 3.5 million. That is a deficit that we have in terms of our FFP. But in the business case that we submitted, we also highlighted the priority positions that despite this deficit that we have, we can proceed with the FFP if we can have these priority positions that we had listed that fall within our COE allocation, that we can actually be able to run with that while National Treasury and DPSA is still considering how, as a department, we can be assisted. During the demerger of the department, there was a clear commitment that departments that were affected by NMOG will be supported in terms of ensuring that they are fully functional by both DPSA and National Treasury. So this is the time that both DPSA and National Treasury should come to the fore and be able to assist the Department of Agriculture to be ideally suited structure-wise to achieve the strategic plan that we have put forward for the Department of Agriculture following the split. So currently, as we speak, the FFP is long gone to the DPSA, and it is still there with the DPSA. Today, from last week, I've been following up to check for the status in terms of the concurrence or the non-concurrence or the decision of the MPSA regarding the structure. Because in terms of the OD directive, the MPSA must ensure concurrence before we can implement the structure. So the answer that we got is that there's a planned DG to DG meeting, which is likely to take place on the 19th and on the 13th of August and the 19th. It was confirmed even this morning by my colleagues at the DPSA that the letter that is coming to our own DG is coming to indicate that there will be this meeting on the 13th and the 19th. And one is of the view that to this meeting, we will also invite, from our side as a department, we'll also invite the National Treasury, so that at least it is a trilateral meeting, DPSA, DOA, and National Treasury. So hopefully after this meeting, there will be concurrence, because the deficit that is really facing us is not much. It's only 3.5 million, 343,502. And then if we can come together, the three departments, then we can be able to then get concurrence and the funds released by National Treasury, and then we can proceed to implement. Only then can we implement. I must, however, rush to indicate to the portfolio committee that in terms of the current capacitation status of the department, based on the startup structure, there is no branch in the department that is capacitated below 80%. I must give an overview briefly. In the office of the DG, because DG has got also program 1 there is capacity of 84%. In FSAR, in program 2, agriculture, production, health and food safety, natural resource management, in that program 2, it is 90% capacitated. In FSAR, it is 87% capacitated. In EDTM, it is 90% capacitated. Yes, there are vacancies in the department. However, the capacity levels, I have just analyzed them there. I analyzed them last week in preparing a report for the minister, and did the DOA capacitation analysis and these are the capacity levels of the different departments. Yes, there are those vacancies that we're in the process of filling, but capacity levels are as indicated. DG, I wish to pause here, and with a conclusion that the FFP will be implemented once the meeting has taken place between you, DG, and the DPSA of DG and the National Treasury. I submit. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
DG, you must direct your meeting so that your people are going to respond to questions.
No, thank you very much, Honorable Chair. I had requested the colleagues Ntate Ramashia, followed by Mayor Butsiling and then Mayor Komapi.
Okay, thanks, DG and Chair and members of the Portfolio Committee. I just had a bit of a challenge here with my devices, so I will request Mem Kanyiswa to respond to the questions on spending areas as well as including the variants. Thank you.
Thank you, CG. Good morning, Chairperson, honorable members, and the TG. I'll start with the question that came from Honorable Trolip in terms of the totals. The total for Program 1, it's 66.6. The 99.4 on slide 43 is for Program 2. What we've done, if you look at the rows, the first row is the total for each program. I think it will read better if you look at it that way. The 66.6, it is informed with the numbers that are there from the sub-programs for Program 1. And then the second question, why the environment exceeded the 8%. You'd remember that in terms of the budget reforms, we are guided by the PFMA and trial regulations. If then it transpired that you'll be spending for the money for the purpose and the mandate that is outside from another program, you have to follow those principles, which is why we had to request in terms of Section 92 of the PFMA, the exemptions to exceed the 8% in terms of the PFMA. Because if we would have not done that, we would have lost the money as the department. For us, we felt that it was proper to request the money to rechannel it elsewhere if we were not spending according to the projections from other areas, like your EDTM as well as your Agri-BEE. Because what we do in the department on a monthly basis, we assess and we submit the IYM to Treasury. And then on a quarterly basis, we have the meeting with the EXCO. And then we look at the performance in terms now of funding. And then we come up with the catch-up plans. As you would know that the fiscus is very dry. So whatever funding we have, we are trying as much as possible as the department to use without sending it back to National Treasury. Why the rollover? Why the rollover? The rollover, it emanated from the fact that the approval, which came as part of the exemption from Section 92 of the PFMA, which was gazetted by the Minister of Finance, it came in the mid-March. So we couldn't translate the whole of it as part of the expenditure. Then we had those commitments already in the system. So we looked and then we assessed, we realized that if we were to forfeit the entire 379, we'll have a burden now of funding again from the current financial year, what was left for the FMD as the commitment. And then to Honorable Mutama, on the suspense account, what is it that we have from the 546? From the department, we do not have. You'd remember that the department in the public service, we are guided by the modified cash standards. So we are using that standard. We are not operating based on the accrual. Then I believe that the report would come from the area of the land bank to respond to say what is it that they've done in terms of the 546. But I believe that Mebutsileng will conclude on that because before we translate this expenditure from the suspense account, we get a disbursement report from the Land Bank, and then we validate that with monitoring and evaluation, and then we say, okay, indeed, we believe that these monies were dispersed to the beneficiaries, and then we release the money from the suspense account. That is the practice in terms of the modified cash standard. Then from Honorable Iris, what is it that we are losing from the 379? It's only 117 million, Honorable Iris. That is subject to the approval of the rollover of 186 million. If we get that rollover of 186 million, it will mean that the money that we are forfeiting in terms now of the law, because remember, you are not allowed to roll over what is for compensation of employees, then we'll be having minimal amount that we would have lost in the 2025-2026 financial year. Thank you so much. I submit. Back to you, Sidi.
Mebutsileng.
Thank you so much, DG. Good morning to the Chair and Portfolio Committee members. I will be responding to the questions around food security, and most were focusing on blended finance. Honorable Trollip's question around our misalignment of blended financing's approval timing with which is not commensurate to the production of the farmers. We have Honorable Trollip also at the departmental level picked that up, that misalignment of the approval structures of the bank with what is happening on the ground in terms of the planting season for farmers. And we have since had a meeting with the CEO and the management of Land Bank just to try and align. And this was not only around production, like my colleague from finance, Mem Kanyusa, was also relating that we get the spending patterns from the Land Bank and have to reconcile. So it was both around aligning our finance processes and their reporting together with now the core of the actual business plans of the farmers and what they would have wanted to approval for, to avoid the challenge that Honorable Trollip indicated of, at the end of the day, some of the farmers end up being diverted from their initial request due to the timing of their production. The department has since had that meeting to do the alignment, Honorable Member. The other question from Honorable Trollip was around why do we keep on postponing the issue of the Food and Nutrition Security Council. The council is not an agriculture council, is a food security which is multi-sectoral, and key would be your Department of Health, Social Development, Basic Education, and COCTA, and many other departments. But the responsibility of convening the council, it is delegated by to the Deputy President as the head of the business in the country. An honorable member would have note that during the first new Food and Nutrition Security Plan that was coordinated by the Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation, it is the department that facilitated the appointment of the National Food Security Council members, chaired by the Deputy President. Then during the sixth administration, there was a transfer of that responsibility to the Department of Agriculture. When that responsibility was, the coordinating responsibility of the council was sent to agriculture, we had since realized that the then appointed council members were only constituting of government ministers or government only. It excluded the civil society, academia, and private sector. Then we are now in consultation with the presidency, Deputy President in particular as the chair of the council, trying to expand the council to be all-inclusive
And it is also prioritized with the new process of the now iteration of that plan. Another question was around the failure of spending with in as far as CASP is concerned. Of the 1.6 billion, the department only spent 83%. At the time of consolidating the report that is being presented now to the honorable members, there were 3 provinces in particular that could not account to the remaining 16% of the CASP money. And there's been an individual consultation, but individual roadshows to those provinces to get deeper to the reasons of their underspending so that we balance the conditional grant. And in this particular instance, CASP in question. Honorable Matlasi asked a question around, there was 38 producers that we could not report on during Q1 due to verification of the support that was given to them. But when we come to Q4, we report that there were 100 producers that were supported. Indeed, honorable member, there were 100, and at the end of the financial year, verified producers that were supported through blended financing. The difference with Q1 was at the time of the reporting, because those 38 were not yet verified. But later on in Q2, there was necessary portfolio of evidence submitted to close the verification. It's just that at the time of the end of reporting for Q1, the verification from Land Bank SDG cited the issue of their cyber hack, that they could not give the department the required monitoring and evaluation reporting. But indeed, we could prove that at the end of the financial year, all the 100 farmers that were targeted to be supported under blended financing were supported. And we noted again, honorable member, your request that the department should give the committee a detailed report of those 100 and account to the 446 million. We will prepare such a report to reconcile the expenditure with the number of farmers that were supported through blended financing. Another question from an honorable member was around the issue of food insecurity at the country level, and whereas we're spending money on supporting these farmers. We acknowledge that the biggest problem in as far as food security is concerned is the issue of access, and particularly to households. And in trying to deal with that, as part of our consultation for the new food security and nutrition plan, our focus is now on food systems and food security at household level, because the numbers that are cited of those that go hungry are at household level, and that's where we plan to focus our interventions at that level to deal with this issue of having enough production at the country level, but it does not translate to those that need that food the most. Honorable Aris also reiterated of the need to have a fully detailed report on the expenditure on blended financing and the actual farmers, with details of who are those farmers, in which commodities were they supported. We will prepare an honorable member to submit that report. Honorable Davis also came on the issue of why was at the end of the financial year, the department is saying there was a draft food and nutrition security plan. Why was it not signed off? The reason for the non-signing off of that food security, we still indicate that food security is bigger than Department of Agriculture. At the end of the financial year, the relevant department had contributed into the draft plan, which we would not give to the minister to sign off at that time, because we needed to go even down to, we had consulted with the civil society, the private sector, but our biggest focus is when you hop at the provincial level, you cannot go to the Department of Agriculture and assume that you have consulted that plan. We need to start at the premier level, where all these departments that are related to this plan are led by the premier's offices, and as far as the consultation, so that at the time that the plan is signed off, every single stakeholder that food security talks to had a hand in that plan. And that is the process that is unfolding right now. Civil society, we were able to deal with them without necessarily dealing with provinces and the private sector, but government, especially at provincial level, that's where our hurdle was, and we are busy with that process, honorable members. Thank you very much, DG. That's the end of the recorded questions.
Thank you very much, DG, and good morning to the honorable member, honorable chair and the members. I will take on the questions that were raised about program 4, which is economic development, trade and marketing. The first question that was raised was around the report, the annual report, Agri-BEE Fund report. And the honorable member asked, we do not indicate how many farmers were supported, which enterprises, and excuse me, and all the demographics. Actually, inside the report, honorable chair, through you, we do indicate the type of enterprise that was supported, where the enterprise is, the number of jobs that were created through the funding that we have extended to that particular enterprise. The next question that was asked is with regards to the fund itself, the funds that have been transferred into the other program to be able to, for the purchase of the vaccines. I should indicate that, Chair, as I have indicated last week, the fund at some point, it was very, very slow to take. And during around 2020, Medidiza expressed concern about the slow intake of the fund. And that's where we started with the review of the fund, and a panel was selected in order to look at the fund. We have, the panel finished the work, and on the 1st of June 2025, we started with the implementation of the reforms of the work of the fund. As I have indicated last week, I indicated that for around 2024-25, the approvals amounted to almost 24 million. And then when we got to 25-26, with the implementation of the reforms that have been implemented, we suddenly saw a jump from that 24 million to 177 million in terms of approvals. And just to give a little bit of background on how this fund operates, it's not a full grant that is provided to the beneficiaries. The funds, on an annual basis, we get about 45 million. And on top of that, it is sitting, excuse me, in an interest-bearing account at the land bank. And on top of that, as the beneficiaries apply for the funding and they get approval, there is an own contribution component of that fund that goes into that account again. Somehow that is how we find ourselves accruing money into the account. By the 1st of April, we had a balance of 282 million, which has been accumulating throughout the years. And for now, what we have in the land bank is 119 million worth of deals that are going through due diligence. We had a bit of a challenge in the past with the due diligence reports. And with the reforms, we are not just sitting back as the department to say, we are waiting for a due diligence assessment report to come back from the land bank in order for us to be able to continue with the transaction. we have started a committee which meets on a monthly basis at the Land Bank. And within that committee, that's where we unlock the blockages that may be there with regards to the fund. And the reason that gives the reason why we were able to give the 40 odd million to program 2 in order for them to be able to spend on the emergency that they have, as we are in the process of trying to spend all the monies that we have at the Land Bank. DJ, I'm gonna request you to assist me on the questions of the CEDs as asked by the Honorable Chair. Thank you very much, Chair, and excuse my voice. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. I'm on my third PC in terms of changing and trying to connect. Chair, let me start off by thanking honorable members for their questions and also for their insights in terms of the sector itself and the request for accountability on a number of areas that were asked. And as indicated by my colleagues who have responded, I will also add to the responses that were there. I think Honorable Trollip was correct in terms of let me start it even in this way, that Honorable Mthethwa, in terms of the absence of the principals, we will convey the message. And in line with what Honorable Trollip was indicating, we will not respond as the department to the political issues. Suffice to note the very important issue that you had raised around food security and alignment to the market, or even in terms of price stability. I think that point is a point of importance when it comes to food security. Mbebuseling has clearly articulated the areas around food security, the areas around access, and the multi-stakeholder relationship that you must have in order to ensure that there is food security. However, from a government side, what you had raised was identification of a government policy where the state would be able to buy, the state would be able to store and also distribute to those in need. Now, I had previously indicated that as the department, we were exploring what in the WTO or the World Trade Organization is called public stock holding. Now, public stock holding refers to that process where the department or the state can be able to have its own way of either production, buying, storing, or distribution of the food that is there. Now, it helps on 3 specific areas. It helps in terms of ensuring that you have got a level of price stability so that you can be able to mitigate against the shock that you have. You can also offer additional farmer support in different areas, because you deal with the issue around guaranteed prices so that you can help your smallholder farmers growing. And you can also have, in the time of need, emergency reserves that can be distributed by government or targeted in terms of distribution to individuals by government. This is a policy issue. Now, that policy issue is actually being governed by the World Trade Organization. Now, this type of intervention, as you correctly said, at international level would be looked at to ensure that governments who have got this do not create a system that through administered pricing, a system that would then be interfering with free trade agreements that are in place. But it is allowed. Now, it is allowed that there have been ongoing discussions at the WTO to allow more countries to participate in the public stockholding arena. And South Africa is one of those that is currently having a discussion there. But public stockholding in South African context, because in 1996 we had decided as a country to go for a system of free trade, would have to be negotiated broadly if there is a policy view to go that route. And when that place is being secured through the WTO, it has got to be debated broadly so that we can see how does it go into a system where you already have got social protection. What kind of buffers do you have in terms of ensuring that this kind of thinking aligns with where we can be as the state? I think for me, having looked at how public stockholding works, it's something that South Africa has got to look at on a broad term. The next level of questions came from Honorable Trolik, and I have got to make an admission from myself in my attempt to summarize. Maybe I've over summarized some of the issues and lost in the meantime the essence to say that honorable members may not be up to date on some of the issues that I have indicated. But my colleagues have actually responded on most of the issues that Honorable Trollip had from this perspective. Suffice to indicate that at the Land Bank, Honorable Trollip, with the new system of how we deal with the land bank from a modified case stand operation that we have, is that any cent that is unspent on a particular year, starting, I think, from this year going forward from the new department, would have to be returned to National Treasury. So our viewpoint is for this money to be utilized from the from a perspective of the land bank, so that we don't have to return money to National Treasury because of underspending. In actual fact, the meeting that the honorable members had with the land bank were already saying that they had overspent in terms of the areas for the 2025-2026. To an extent that yesterday, Honorable Trolik, I had the pleasure of meeting one farmer from Kokstad. And the farmer from Kokstad was saying, look, I had production loans that I had applied for through the land bank, and I've acquired land through the land bank, and this is what's happening. I'm a successful farmer in dealing with issues. But it became very evident that we might be dealing with an issue where the land bank may have overexposed the area of their loan book, which is something that I had promised and will take a route with the CEO so that it's been dealt with. So this issue around the slow spending of the land bank has been corrected, and they are now moving in tandem in terms of the work that is being done. Honorable Trollip, on the issue around the payment within 30 days, in Q4, where I referred to the 6% where we could not pay, it was from the client units, and that slide would refer to the client units. The client units means those in the department. For instance, a payment would be, an invoice would be submitted with a front desk within program 2, and that front desk would be expected to process that invoice for payment after verifying its veracity in terms of ensuring that there's assessment and saying that is the right invoice to pay. Then it has got to be submitted to the colleagues at finance for payment. So we refer to ourselves. That is why even in terms of that, I said that it's an internal issue around discipline more than the clients, because the ones from the clients, we only take valid invoices to process within the system. My colleagues have responded to the issue around the council, the issue around the makeup in terms of calculations. I think what I can just indicate around CASP, Honorable Trollip, and the spending that is there, is that CASP spending, because of what we have, is based on the plans that would have come from the provinces. And at times, those plans do not materialize, and provinces have got to change those plans. And in that transition, where these plans are being looked at times, it becomes that element where we have got to address those matters. Honorable Matlatsi, Melebo has responded to the issues in terms of the AGSA findings for 2024, 2025, and 2025-2026 in terms of the findings, and the verification of this 100 has been done in terms of the engagements, and the report that would come to the portfolio committee would show that this is the issue. I think it's very important in terms of the request that has been made that we will also similarly, Honorable Matlatsi, ensure that we also make a report around Agri-BE in terms of how much was delivered, how much is lying in the suspense account, so that you can be able to see that. But for the current or the previous financial year, we have ensured that we have dealt with that area. Honorable Mkitama, two issues that I would say maybe is an issue of viewing, and I respect the view that you express. The view around the empowerment of Black agriculturists, and also the creation of a Black sector and an agricultural class in South Africa. And I would say that this issue has been at the center of agricultural development right through. And from all of us within the sector, before, now, and those who will follow, this is the most single thing that has got to be pushed through. Through the Agriculture and Agro-Processing Master Plan, there are clear targets in terms of where we would want to go. We first identify where the participation of Black farmers is within the agricultural value chain per industry, and we make bold ambitions in terms of where we would want to reach. Now, are these ambitions being met? There's movement towards reaching those, but unfortunately, because farming is a business, it is tried to indicate that there will be those who will make it, there will be those who will not make it. It is very unfortunate that those who make it, Honorable Mkitama, would not be vocal like the ones who did not make it. And I had met a few that have made it, including the farmer that I met yesterday, who's really making good progress in terms of farming. Now, the critical issue around food and importation, Mebutsiling has made that reference, Honorable Mkitama. If the portfolio committee looks at the production of staple foods this year, and let's call on maize, this year we expect as a country to have a bumper crop, 17 million tons of maize. However, at household level, we still have got a problem. Now, what leads to this problem is what we should be assist with. And it is quite clear that at some stage, at household food level, if you have got to look at areas that we have in the traditionally governed areas, or the households where you have got traditional leaders, you still have got land that is lying unused in most instances. And if we have got to go to that level, we still have got vast lands in terms of yards where people would not even be planting a little bit of vegetables and those. And I think that's the point that we need to be embracing as the department and moving towards it. You are correct, Honorable Mkitama, when you talk about importation, and we refer to wheat, because in this case, we refer to wheat. Now, it also talks about the taste and preferences that we have as people in South Africa, because if we prefer wheat, it would mean that we have got to produce more wheat. South Africa produces 50% of the wheat that we utilize in our country. The other 50% comes from imports. Why is that the case? The case is known to the agriculturists that we produce wheat, and the imported wheat is blended so that we can be able to mill and produce the quality bread that we enjoy in South Africa. Do we have plans in terms of dealing with wheat? Yes, we have. But at this moment, you would know that the wheat producers are actually even saying that they find it very hard in terms of production, because when they submit requests in terms of import protection, there is that level of maybe indication that comes from the authorities that would say that there is a challenge because the aspects do not are not supported from that level. But there is an engagement currently, Honorable Mkutama, with the between the minister to ensure that we can be able to deal with the issue around the wheat. We have got what we call a Section 7 investigating committee through the National Agricultural Marketing Council, just to investigate what kind of interventions can we have in the wheat industry to ensure its sustainability and ensure that one of the staples that we have in South Africa is moved into a realm that people have got security around that. In terms of food security, you are correct. One of my colleagues always says this, maybe once we are through with the food security and nutrition plan, we need to move to a point where we can say we have got legislation around food security. And that legislation around food security might not necessarily go to the levels where you are guiding us to go, Honorable Mkutama. It might be an issue of saying, how do we ensure food security utilizing the broad spectrum in terms of intensive and extensive farming production that we have in South Africa, as we have had. I think one area that I would maybe caution in terms of the engagements broadly, and it's a debate that happens within the sector, honorable members, is an issue around saying maybe a comparative analysis between exports and what we produce at home, to say that one is compromising the other. And my argument is that it's not an either or matter. It's both very being important. Both being very important because all of those are important for food security, because food security would talk about access, it will also talk about the affordability. And therefore, the people who are employed in an area when it comes to job creation would require to also get some work from the department in terms of the employment that is being created in the sector. And most employment that we have in the sector is around intensive production, horticulture, which is export orientated, which gives us a lot of jobs, of the 960,000 jobs that we have in the sector. So that kind of saying that they are in the very same continuum, we just need to ensure that none of those are neglected as we move towards a good way of balancing between what we export and what we produce for consumption at home, and ensuring that in terms and in line with what we have in terms of the localization of our food systems, we are able to produce for South Africans what we consume. Honorable Aris, you have asked a very important question, and I take full responsibility in terms of the performance of the department. I also take full accountability of the performance of the department, and I will not hide in terms of the performance of the department. But equally, Honorable Aris, I always say that one of the areas that we require in terms of the state machinery that we have is stability. I would challenge the engagements that we are having as a department. Each and every time that I challenge the engagements is to say, once you go through the engagements at a particular level and you stabilize, only through a certain time will you start that stability coming in. And the minute that a new change and an abrupt end is being introduced into the system, you are almost going back to pick up where you had already fixed. So that's the problem that we are having. But without any doubt, I take full responsibility, honorable members, and I will not shift any blame to any other person. But where we are as the department, I take full responsibility for it. We will supply Honorable Aris the issues around blended finance, as Mayor Butseleng has indicated, for the engagements where we are. On the audit findings, only 3 Honorable Aris are read, and most of them that you are seeing is HR and 2 from IT. Some of those would require funding. Now, it would be very important that once it's an issue around funding, we have got to get funding in order for us to move ahead in terms of those areas, identify the funding and ensure that those are being pushed ahead. Most of our issues are currently being implemented at various levels. Honorable Aris, as indicated, Mekhang has responded to the matter around the filling of vacancies, which we are currently doing. The Honorable Chair talks about environments and budget reallocation. Mem Kanyiswa had reflected on the matter, on the possible implications. The implications are very hard to look at, Honorable Chair. We have got environments that were done from program 1. That program 1 is the very same program that has got 2 findings on IT. That money could have dealt with the issue around IT, ensured that we deal with matters relating to digitalization in terms of the system. The second element was the issue around the CEDs, which is a very sensitive issue, which our engagements at the negotiation chamber is currently been dealing with. But this program is very important, in fact, extremely important in terms of the farmers. It is important because it's a program that assists and supplements cooperatives that we have. Many cooperatives that would be constituted to ensure that the power of a farmer is consolidated. The farmers can share in terms of the utilization of various inputs that we buy for them. And that is where the money came from. It is tried to indicate that it changes the structure in terms of what we can provide to the farmers. And hence, during our engagements, Honorable Chair, with it is best that this money is being used for the farmers and not for the farmers who want to plant, for the farmers who are able to utilize land, so that we can get more farmers contributing to the GDP of the country. But at the same time, we're sitting at a point where there wouldn't be any funding that comes from the from National Treasury to deal with this, and it is expected internally to do these cuts that are to the core of the department. In closing, Chair, I need to reflect and indicate that we have got these colleagues, 2,100 plus, who are in the department, all of them expanded, and all of them committed. We have got colleagues who are very committed, ensure that the department is moving in the upward trajectory. We are currently having a system where we are filling vacancies to ensure that we move to a greater level of vacancy rate. As at the time of engagements, we are under 9 for operational posts, 9%, and just around 14 for senior management, which I had opened a way of ensuring that we have got a system of ensuring that we fill these vacancies and are able to then start having accountability and responsibility in various programs that we have in government. Thank you very much, Honorable Chair.
Thank you so much, DG. I just want to establish whether we do have follow-up questions from honorable members. But
Yes, yes, Chair. No,
I see Honorable Aris. Honorable Trolip, is it a legacy hand? Honorable Mtetwa, Honorable members, let's be concise, straight to the follow-up question, and not raise any other political matters, just a brief follow-up question. I'll start with Honorable Aris.
Yes, thank you very much, Chairperson. The department should submit to the committee a report with the clear targets that the DG says are outlined in the Agriculture and Agri-Processing Master Plan for the uplifting of Black producers. And this report should also specify the achievements of those specific targets since the adoption of the master plan in 2022. And then, Chair, as the committee has previously noted, the agriculture and agro-processing master plan does not seem to be aligned with the existing department plans regarding specific implementation targets. So if the department can just please provide us with that. Thank you, Chair.
Honorable Mteto.
Yes, greetings, Chair, and thanks for the opportunity. My question relates to transformation in the agricultural sector, which I don't see in your quarterly report as a specific item that you need to mainstream across all departments and divisions, but also especially in the industry. It is this department who needs to ensure that agriculture does not center around white people only, but Black people. So we need to come up with something like enterprise development in the agricultural sector. And there's another thing called supplier development. These are part of BE codes of good practice enshrined in law in 2007. And still today, we don't have the mainstreaming of that. Instead, we see the opposite, where the same white people are bashing down Black economic empowerment in
Thank
the
you so much. Thank you so much, Honorable Mteto. DG.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair and Honorable Mteto. I think Honorable Mteto will be also covered by the request that came from Honorable Aris in terms of ensuring that the department avails the targets that we currently have, the movement that has been there over the years in terms of transformation in the sector. We will provide that information, Honorable Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, DG, for providing us with those responses. And we're looking forward to receive your written presentations as requested by the Portfolio Committee. Honorable Member, we have noted the concerns about the recurring non-attendance of members of the executive in the meetings of the Portfolio Committee. And we understand that ministers and deputy ministers have demanding schedules and competing responsibilities. However, Parliament is constitutionally mandated to exercise oversight over the executive, and this responsibility requires meaningful engagement with the political leadership of the department. We don't want to raise our issues that require political direction and accountability of the executive and end up engaging with officials. So in that, honorable members, we are going to raise our concern in writing to the executive. We have a responsibility to protect the integrity of parliamentary oversight whilst ensuring a constructive relationship with the executive. We are not going to be hostile in our approach, but we are going to ensure that they do come and account before the Portfolio Committee. We're hoping that we are going to get a very substantive and convincing response from them. And we're hoping that they are going to improve as far as attendance is concerned. With those a few closing remarks, DG, we're looking forward to receive your presentations as required by or as requested by the Portfolio Committee. The meeting is declared adjourned. Thank you.